Welcome to another exciting episode of Level Up and Live, the podcast where we dissect success, growth, and the journey to becoming the best version of yourself. I'm your host, Ewan Meyers, and today we're flipping the script. Brace yourselves because the tables are turning, and we're diving into the world of someone who usually sits on the other side of the mic, our incredible co-host, Ewan Heinemeier. Ewan is the man with the questions, the one who pulls the gems of wisdom from our fantastic guest. But today, it's his turn to be in the spotlight. Get ready for a roller coaster ride as he reveals stories and insights that even I didn't see coming. So fasten your seatbelts. This is the Level Up and Live podcast, where we stop existing and start living today. Let's dive in. Ewan Heinemeier, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back on the show permanently. Yeah, this is exciting. I'll say up front, like we talked about before, this is not something I like to be asking the questions. People knowing about me is, I don't need people to know about me in my mind. But from our process going forward, it's important for people to know. So
the tables have turned today. Now, Ewan Heinemeier, the man, the myth, the legend, that all of you and all of our audience and listeners and friends and family and community, Ewan does such a good job at asking the questions. If you know Ewan and you're around Ewan in our community and either social media, he is all about you. He is all about the listener. He is all about the audience, and that is selflessness. And today you're going to learn so much about this young man, and I'm super excited to be able to ask him these hard, pressing, challenging questions to find out about this guy.
Yeah, my memory's terrible, so these will be hard.
He's got short-term memory is what we're trying to say.
They're only hard because I don't remember well, but just kidding.
So without further ado, Ewan Heinemeier, welcome to the podcast, Level Up and Live, baby. Super excited to be on this journey with you and this venture with you. I have no doubt that good things are lying ahead, and God is not going to give us something that we cannot handle together. So,
absolutely.
So without further ado, man, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Yeah. So I'm 42 now, but I started 42 years ago. I originally grew up in Scotland. My whole family is back in Scotland. Grew up in a small town called Livingston Village, and about 10 years old, moved to Edinburgh, which is the capital of Scotland. And my dad was a preacher. He was a smoker, drinker, fighter up until the age of 30. My sister was born, and he found God, and my dad went all in with that and turned his life completely around and went to Bible school and became a preacher. And my mom was a very intelligent woman. She's a chemist. She ran a lab. She's very intelligent. But for the longest time, she was a stay-at-home mom, which is interesting because in Scotland, my dad being a preacher, the UK, Great Britain is mainly it's really atheistic now, which is funny because that's where a lot of religion was pushed from over centuries, but now it's mainly atheistic. People don't really go to church, and same pretty much Europe across the board. It's not like America like it is here. But my dad, he became a preacher there, so that was kind of the environment for me, and I attest a lot of my personality to grow up in that environment. It wasn't always positive, right? I was rebellious. I didn't always want to accept what my parents said, but I had great parents, and I'm very grateful for them. And what's interesting is that my dad being a preacher, working in the church, we would have Americans come over to help build the church. So from a young age, I had this American influence, and I just loved the American spirit. I loved these. They always looked like they were having fun. They were loud and wild. And I was like, that's my kind of party right there. And so as they kept coming over, they were typically 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. And I was young, 5, 6 years old, probably 7. And so they would keep coming over about the same age, but I kept getting older, So at some point they were 18, 19, 20, and I was 16, 17, 18. So I'm getting to know these people and just loving what they're saying. And around 19 years old, I had some friends at the school in Arkansas. It was called Harding University. And I had the chance to go. This is hilarious because I'm a C student. I had dyslexia, ADHD, never tried hard in school, never cared. And I'm like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to university in America. Everyone laughed. I think I laughed. And in my mind, I just manifested. If I to look back, I don't know how it happened, to be honest. Like I had zero business, because in university in America is it's expensive, and the UK is free. Taxes pay for it, so it's not free. Taxes pay for it, but so we weren't wealthy by any means. We didn't have the money to really do that. So I got a job, started saving. I was determined, and Mom and Dad pulled some strings that they had, and they gave me some money that they probably didn't have to give, which I'll be forever grateful for that. But it got me there my first year of school. I just found myself there, and it was the time of my life. So that takes me up to there. I don't know if you have anything to say about that so far. I don't want to keep talking.
Yeah, man. No, it's a beautiful journey. I think it's well spelled out. So you got to the States. You made that leap of faith. What was your feelings like? What was going through your mind? Because you didn't know anybody over here. You said you had a couple friends.
I had some friends. So I knew of the school, but it's funny because Arkansas is the natural state, right? And so I'd seen a bunch of American movies, Hollywood, New York, and I'm like, I'm going to America. I tell my friends I'm going to America, and I basically land in Little Rock, and I'm like, man, I was lied to. This does not look like glamorous at all. It's like very outdoorsy. Now, knowing what I know now, Arkansas is beautiful. I love that state. It's really great place. And so, yeah, I'm glad I didn't go to anywhere else other than that. But my feelings and emotions with that, I was kind of one track mind. I was just, that's what I want to do. I didn't think about the consequences. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I just knew I had this vision of me being there, and just one day led to the next. It's all a bit of a blur, to be honest. I still, at 42 today, I have 2 kids and a wife that I love dearly. My son's 8, my daughter's 10. I still sometimes look back, I'm like, what am I doing here in America? Like, it's just bizarre. My whole family's back in Scotland. I have a big family, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents. And, but yeah, when I think back, it just kind of manifested. I don't know how else to say it. I just had a vision and made it happen, and it occurred.
And speaking of manifesting, who did you meet there?
My lovely wife. She hated me when she first met me. I don't know, hate might be a strong word, but you could ask her. She said, man, when I met him, I did not like him. Like, I think I was so distracted with all that was going on, the fun that we were having. I didn't pay her the attention that she I definitely didn't pay her the attention that she deserved. And so, yeah, we didn't hit it off right away, but our circle of friends were the same friends. So we kept hanging out, and we ended up, I liked a different girl and she liked a different guy. And I think we had been discussing our feelings for these other people, and we kept hanging out, kept discussing it, and the woes and the difficulties. And then I think it was a spring break or Thanksgiving break, and we went skiing in, oh man, where did we go? Jackson Hole. We went skiing there, and we both just looked at each other. I think we were in a Walmart getting some, like a pit stop, and we've discussed this, and we just looked at each other and was like, I think I really like her. And so we started hanging out, started dating, and the rest was history. And we dated on and off for probably 4 years. And then my last year of school, I just realized, like, she's a very special person, very intelligent, makes me laugh. And that means everything to me. She makes me laugh. So she's just a wonderful, wonderful human being. Just, if anybody knows Kelly Heinemeier, she's special person.
She definitely is.
Yeah.
How long y'all been married?
18 years. Man, I almost got that wrong there. Yeah, 18 going on 19 years, which is just, I can't say that out loud. It's crazy.
It's been all rainbows and sunshines, right?
Oh, every minute, every day since day one, it was easy going.
We'll touch on that here in a second. Yeah. So moving forward, so you meet Kel, y'all end up, how long did you say you dated? 4 years?
4 on and off, yeah. Yeah,
and
she
then,
dated a few different people. I dated a few different people, and we just kept coming back to each other.
Then you proposed?
Yep.
Awesome.
We met at a gas station our freshman year, and I ended up taking her back there and surprised her with, and it's not glamorous by any means, but to us it meant a lot because it was.
Wait a minute, I've known you for 13 plus years. Yeah. I never knew that you proposed to Gail behind a gas station. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
It was in the gas station we met at inside, because there was a big party there. It was this guys, they put on a Mountain Dew party, and it was like started off with 4 of us, 5 of us, or actually it was a party. It was already 4 guys were doing, and they invited me along. And I remember I invited some friends, Then they invited some friends every Thursday night, and it got wild. It got to the point where there was 80, 90 people showing up, and your initiation was to chug 64 ounces of Mountain Dew, caffeine through the roof. And so you just got these college kids going bananas on caffeine, like throwing stuff. People were dressing their trucks and cars up with green. And it was like this big thing. And the owners of the gas station had to shut it down because we were just wrecking the place every Thursday. So that's where we met, was Mountain Dew night. And so, yeah, I took her back there, and it was a surprise. Like, she had no clue. So it was
fantastic,
romantic in my mind.
Love it. I love it. I love it. So you asked her to marry you, and moving forward, what was your first transition? And so you're married, here you are. What was your first job, like transitioning into your career here in the States?
Yeah, it's a funny story because I'm from Scotland, so I'm not a citizen, and I still not actually. I just have my permanent resident. I'm working on my citizenship. I realized I could now have both. I didn't want to give up my Scottish citizenship, but now the laws are I can do both. So when I came out, I couldn't work, right? So I got this marketing degree. Cost me tens of thousands of dollars to get, and it meant nothing, I couldn't work. So I was literally playing online poker when it was still legal to play online, and I was winning enough to pay some bills. I don't play poker anymore, but at the time it was the thing to do, and studied it, and so my green card eventually came through. Man, we had to go through the FBI process. Like, they interviewed us, make sure I was legally allowed to be here. So yeah, that's a whole different story,
Yeah.
But so I get my green card, and I'm like, okay, I can work. I'm going to use my degree. And the only offer I got was from Tomball Ford. Like, if you're local, Tomball Ford is a Ford dealership selling cars and trucks. And I just jumped at it, just took it. It was a sales position. And I think I was the only person there with a college degree. I think there was one other guy. But yeah, so that was my first job. And
did you have any sales experience when you had accepted the position?
Worked at the equivalent in Scotland, the equivalent of a Best Buy, and I don't know what it was. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I didn't even know it was sales. I was just needing a job to get some money together. But I was always good at selling the warranties on TVs, and it was always my mission to sell a warranty on a iron. They were like $10 irons, and it was like $2 to buy a warranty on there. And I just thought it'd be so cool if someone said yes to that.
Like a clothes iron?
Yeah, a clothing iron where you flatten out wrinkles. Yeah, and I'm like, it was just ridiculous that anyone. So I never pushed it hard, but my mission was I could always sell a warranty on the TV if it breaks, blah, blah, blah. And I was really good at it. I rose up to the top ranks selling that because I knew it was actually a good product.
That's like selling ice to an Eskimo, right?
It wasn't
natural
easy. They sent me down to Newcastle, which is in England, to do a sales training, and I did it. And I came back and they said, you got the highest numbers that anyone ever did. And I was like, what? I didn't even know what it was. They just you had to role play and do all these different things and sell people. And they said, like, out of everyone that's ever gone, I think I got like a 98 out of 100. And no one had ever got that score. And I was like, no clue. I had zero interest in sales. I was just being a human being, right? Like, just communicating with people, finding out what's important to them and relating that to the product they're buying. So, so we did that. And yeah, so I enjoyed that. It was a sales position. So when I got into the car deal, I was like, I've sold before, So that was a whole different level of selling, right? It's one thing selling a warranty on a TV or whatnot, but selling a $50,000 vehicle to some grumpy old man, I was not prepared for that. So first 6 weeks, I didn't sell anything. There was a training thing. There's a bunch of guys that went through. Only 3 of us were selected. And those 2 guys had sold cars. They were doing well. And I don't know what was wrong with me. I was like, man, maybe this just isn't for me. And I remember it was a weeknight, and I had tried many times I was almost able to get someone to buy a car. And I was like, this is hard. And I remember someone finally said yes, walked them all the way through. They were so happy, got the car they wanted. And in the time, this was 2008. It was 2007. 2008, they would cut your tie, like, to say well done. This is when we wore ties at a car dealership. It was like, basically, you have entered the realm of sales world. And from there, I went to the top. Like, I sold my first one, and the pattern emerged, and I just loved it. Loved selling. I was making more than all the people who had the degrees in college, selling cars.
What do you think separated the difference between you being able to do what you did at Tomball Ford and the rest of the pack?
I think, I've analyzed this a lot because I'm still in sales, and today, sales might be a dirty word to some people, but ultimately, sales is helping people resolve an issue they have, or to provide something that they want, and finding those keys out and then providing what it is that you have or relating it to that to where they're comfortable getting it. It's all about them, right? Like you said, that's not some cheesy line for me. That's how I really live my life, right? Man, again, I'm trying to think of how to say this without sounding cheesy or cliche, but ultimately it's effective, right? In my mind, like, this person wants something and I have something to sell, and is it a match? So finding out if it's not a match for them, I wouldn't sell it. Honestly, that's not some tagline. Like, money is not important to me at this point.
That's one thing I respect about you is just over the years that I've gotten to know you, you've never been about the transaction. You've always been about the relationship piece. And we've partnered up with things in the past, and I've seen you and just in your own business, in your own world. It's never about the chase. It's never about the destination. It's always about like the here and the now, diving deep in that relationship with that customer, with that. And that's such a beautiful thing. And that's why you listening to this, it's very special. And I'm honored to be completely transparent to have you a part of Level Up and Live, because it's going to only impact and serve more people and go more in depth, because you do care about not necessarily the outcome, but that's just the byproduct, but how do we serve our listener? How do we serve our audience? And that's such a beautiful thing. And I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why you are where you are today and what you've done.
It's well said, man. That was, I wouldn't be able to sum it up like that, man. Yeah, we just fist bumped, by the way.
It just happened.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's why this thing is going. I've done other businesses, started them, and
so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So transitioning out of Tomball Ford. How did we meet?
Man, so the economy got rough, and that this might be more appropriate than ever, because I like to predict things. I look at charts. I like to trade and different things, and that's kind of a passion side hobby thing for me. But I analyze a lot of data and just what's going on in the economy, and there's some tough times coming. I mean, there's just no way around that. I don't know how bad it's going to be. Maybe it's short-lived. Maybe it's longer. Who knows? No one can predict that portion. But recessions always come, right? Or depressions. That's another story. But in 2008, the economy tanked, everything exploded, and man, you couldn't sell. I've been at Tomball Ford for about a year and a half, and was just doing really well. Financially, it was really well. I was really enjoying it, and man, you couldn't give a car away. Like people who had lots of money, high credit, the bank still wouldn't finance them. It was just a whole different story. No one was prepared for it, and the money just stopped. I had to have a living, and it was in commission based. I was uncertain. So I kind of went to panic stations. So I was like, man, I got to get out of this, man. I got to find something secure. I got my wife to look after. Didn't have kids at the time. And Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Now, talk about swallowing your pride. Like, I was like, man, I went to school, got my degree, was making good money selling these cars. I didn't care if it was reputable or not. Like, I knew it was a service selling cars. Some people think it's kind of low or whatever. But man, I lived that life, and I've always appreciated it. And the people in the business. But yeah, so Enterprise, I'm like, renting cars, man, for this low salary. I was like, I think it was like $38,000 or something a year. I was like, but I needed something. So I took it. And I remember I wore a 3-piece suit to my first day out hired on. And they gave me a leaf blower and with a backpack. And so because Hurricane Harvey had hit, I want to say it was, or Ike.
Hurricane Ike, 2009, 2008? Yeah.
Okay,
Ike, I think it was like.
And so, yeah, like there was trees down everywhere, leaves everywhere, cars crushed. And we have this is in Conroe, Texas, on Fraser Street. And yeah, so Lisa Venchkoven, little shout out. She was our boss there at the time. And she always laughed. She always like, I remember you and Kay in this 3-piece suit and a leaf blower. And I remember thinking to myself, I have failed at life. Like, how am I here? Like, how did this happen? And so it was a great learning lesson, great ego humbling lesson. And Enterprise, end of the day, is as difficult as it was. For 4 years I was there, worked the management program, became top sales guy.
That's right.
Was selling the product for protecting the cars, the waiver, and I learned how to run a business out of that, man. And we did everything in there. So I'm always grateful to them for that. But the most grateful thing is, about a year and a half in, this young whippersnapper comes in, and his name was Meyers. And we just clicked from day one. Hey, I don't know what it was. Like, you made me laugh, and you still to this day, you'll make me like belly laugh. And what's so funny is you never know why I'm laughing, but like you just say some of the funniest things. If you don't know Sean, man, and if you haven't got that, man, he's one of, that's why he's so special in my life. Like, makes me laugh.
I always say, he always says I make him laugh. And as far as my communication style, I always considered myself speaking from the heart, right? When I talk to people one-on-one, even the podcast, like that's where I feel like I'm in the zone, and that's where I feel like I come alive, is speaking from the heart. So when he said, like, I made him laugh, and I still continue to make him laugh, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if you're laughing with me or at me or
definitely with you, or just the marvel of the, like, you get yourself in a situation, and the way you say things. You get me, man. You know, you just get me.
I know what you were laughing at.
What's that?
You remember what I wore on my first day?
Oh, was it the first day? I was trying to think there. So he showed up. I think he'd been at Shenanigans the night before, and he showed up. Oh, he was locked out of his truck, and he had he had to wear a white shirt, tie, mainly a suit jacket, like a suit at Enterprise at the time. You had to be clean shaven too. Couldn't have any facial hair. I think they changed that rule, but he showed up. He had a Western pearl snap. It was white. That's why he had it. Yes. And he had some pants, black pants that were too short, and he had two opposite socks.
White socks.
White socks and some random shoes. And he was hungover. And I just remember, growing up in Scotland, fashion was important to me. I always liked to dress well. Even people who don't dress well in Scotland are dress well, like comparatively to a lot of other cultures. And so I'm kind of meticulous. I don't know why that is. I just enjoy it. It's kind of like an art form, right? Expression or whatever. And I remember seeing Sean, I was like, what is he wearing, man? I had to get a picture. I was like, I remember looking around like, is anyone else seeing this? And it was so funny, though. You made me laugh so hard. And you just had this happy-go-lucky attitude, just loving life, like just enjoying every minute. And that was infectious, man. I remember I took things very seriously at the job, and then you just made it really fun. Like, I remember it got fun immediately. I didn't know any better. At that point in my life, I was fresh out of college. I didn't really, people had moved on, kids, new job, new career. And here I was just kind of in the unknown. And so, and lo and behold, again, God works in mysterious ways. I'm a big believer in the higher power there. I think he put Ewan in my life to really help guide me, mentor me, and almost like that father figure, so which has been a super blessing over the years, and super grateful. So, okay, you meet this guy, enough of the sappy stuff, right? Get his teared up. So you meet this guy, come in, and then you are at Enterprise, you put your head down, and Ewan's been super humble about it, but Ewan basically crushed, executed, he was a top sales guy there, damage waiver on the cars. And as far as a mentor, a leader, I mean, he just was just outpacing everybody, just outshining everyone. So fast forwarding a couple years ago, and then you kind of hit this place at Enterprise where you're like, okay, I'm not at a place where it was soul sucking. I mean, I'll say it. Like, I had honestly up until about 3 years ago. So it's been, since 2012. So it was 11 years ago. I got out, and man, maybe up until, so would have nightmares that I was back there, and I'd wake up thinking I was behind that till. Like, nothing against people who are renting cars right now. This is just me, my personal thoughts and story. Just kind of, it was a bit traumatic. It was a lot of hours, It was a great place, man. Man, I can't.
How many hours were you working per week?
Probably 50 to 55. And, coming from Scotland, 38 hours is a full-time week, So I'm like, man, this is, and I was in the car business too. So it was a bit more fast-paced. I was still working about the same hours there, but this was in front of a customer all day long. And just a lot of complaints, and it just wasn't what I was made for, right? This was kind of this retail. I just wasn't enjoying it. Some people love it, and I love that they love it, but it wasn't for me. And I wanted out. And man, lo and behold, Kendra, your wife, was got a job at Henry Schein.
That's right,
selling dental equipment and dental supplies. And I remember looking at it, I was like, that looks very attractive. I remember, so talking about manifestation, right? Like, I said, I'm coming to America at a young age, and boom, I'm in America. I don't know how that happened. I remember when I first started working at Tomball Ford, my in-laws bought me this it was super cool, old Volvo, something 40. I can't remember. It was like a 90s car, super boxy. I don't know if you remember that Volvo. Super
I do.
boxy. It was
White Volvo.
It was the black one. I don't know if you
one?
never
No,
saw this one. And it was old, and I sold it at Tom before, so I guess it was before. But I remember seeing a Mustang. I'd never come from Scotland. There's no muscle cars. This is American. Like a muscle car is an American thing. You don't see those in Scotland. Like cars are smaller and quiet. You know, we have our fast cars, but nothing like a Mustang. And I remember sitting in one for the first time and just revving the engine. And I was like, oh, I fell in love. I remember just sitting there and I was like, I could never afford one of these, you know? And I remember I'd be driving home and I'd see a Mustang drive by, and I just thought, I put the window down so I could hear it rumbling. And I was just dreaming about it. And I remember about 6 months later, I realized I was driving home in a Mustang. Like I just made it happen, you know? And yeah, because the payment at the time was ludicrous, but I was like, man, I'm going to make this happen. And I never bought a new car before. It was my first new car. And actually sold that Volvo to one of the guys there, and he gave it to his son. So that car continued to move on, and it was a super cool car. But that Mustang, that was another one of those. Man, when you think about stuff, you can make it happen.
That's right.
That's when I first realized that. It was kind of a pattern. I'm a pattern recognition kind of person, right?
Yes.
Spatial awareness and things that if I can pick up the pattern, I can really do something with it. Like same when I'm selling something, right? I understand there's a pattern of how people's minds work and how can we get them what they want in the quickest amount of time for the price that they want to pay for it, you know? And that's always kind of my mindset. And so then it was, I remember in college, this is another thing to confirm on that. I was a marketing degree, having time in my life, no thoughts. I had zero thoughts about what I wanted to do for a living. And I remember I was like, well, if I was to sum it up, I can't remember if I said it out loud, but in my mind, I was like, I'd like to have a 6-figure job, which 6-figure jobs in college in 2006 was like, oh, that's big money, man. And I want to work 20 hours a week, and I want to be closing deals on a golf course. And I remember thinking that over and over. I was like, that's what I want to do. What job? I don't know. I don't know what job pays me 6 figures, but I manifested that. And I remember, it was probably 5-6 years ago. And I remember looking, I was like, man, I checked all those boxes. And another one of those things, I had a thought and it happened. And I'm not the only person that does this, PS. If you're listening, anyone can do that, right? There is a pattern to it. So anyone can learn that and it will happen. It's not magic. It's not some like, oh, the universe is doing this for me. I don't believe in that. I believe in God. But as far as like making things happen in your life, that is within your own imagination.
Yeah.
And then executing.
Have you always, so the manifestation, the vision, when you were in this career, when you're in this time frame, did you always know that you were made for more? Did you always have that belief or that self worthiness? Or did you? No,
I really didn't. You know, growing up in Scotland, I was in school. I think I was. So we call it primaries. Primary 1 is your 5, and then you're up to primary 7. So you leave primary school at 12, and then you go to high school. So you're about 12, 13 when you go to high school, and it's 1st through 6th year, and you graduate at 18, kind of like And I think I was 5 or 6 within my first year. They realized my ability to write or learn, you know, reading stuff that I was off, you know, so they had me tested and came back with dyslexia. So that was something I had to go to classes for. Like they'd pull me out of class and then I'd have to go back and re-assimilate into the classroom after I was done. And I remember I think I was asking my mom and dad about this a few weeks back, and they said they think I did that for 4 years, maybe, which is longer than I remember. But I remember my self-esteem, I was like, oh, I'm different. I'm not smart. I think for the longest time, I was like, man, I'm a dumb person. Like I'm not intelligent. I'm not good at school, which means I'm not smart. So, man, anybody listening to this, you know, just because you're not good at school, I've learned this. Like that has zero impact on your intelligence and what you're capable of doing. So, you know, anyone that you know that suffers with that, like, man, share this podcast with them. You know,
and that's what. I always call it street smart and academic smart, right?
Yeah.
And
with school, you know, it's memorization, right? If you know the answer, you'd have to memorize it, right? So what has that got to do with problem solving? Like at what point are you problem solving? Math is basically an equation. You have to learn, memorize what the equation is. Nothing against that. That's great. You got to have that, right? But as far as practical attributes, you don't get grades out in the real world. You know, you get your monetary value over what you produce in income is directly correlated with the size of the problem that you solve, right? So you don't get paid for getting an A or a B, right? And man, most of the sales guys, top guys, I mean, these guys, some of them making $500,000-$600,000 a year, and they're all C students. You know, they weren't A players, and not to say that an A student couldn't do that at all, but you know, for me, I had to learn at a young age. Okay, I don't fit in well here, and my brain works differently. You know, I just read this on LinkedIn the other day. It's kind of cool that LinkedIn attribute dyslexia as a strength now. They're actually looking for people with dyslexia because the way the brain works within that is, like I was saying, pattern recognition. They see the world in a different light. And I'll give that to anyone with any kind of disability. They have to navigate the world differently, and the skills that they have to learn to navigate end up being a superpower in the real world. It's very difficult when you're young, but it also builds tenacity, willpower. But sometimes, you know, it does ding the self-esteem. So I didn't really think I had any kind of intelligence until probably my mid-30s, right? Like, I'm in medical equipment sales now, and even, man, probably my first 3 or 4 years of that, even with the success I had, I was like, I still had that self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all those things, you know. And since then, you know, I've really gone to town to work on that stuff, and it's really completely vanished, to be honest. Like, I feel very confident and content, right? Like, that's really what I think I've been after my whole life, is peace. So,
so you're being super humble right now. So Ewan has had some huge milestones in his life, and we don't really necessarily talk about, like, we're kind of at a place where, like, we are very advocate of, hey, it's not all about the money. It's about these other things that, yes, money's important. It's a tool. It's a byproduct. But once you learn, like, what he's talking about as far as the value, the impact, the serving, the relationships, and solving a bigger problem in what you're doing right now in this very moment, then guess what comes? The byproduct, right? Which is the monetary value, the scorecard, the tool, and the resources, which is super important.
Why didn't someone tell me that when I was 25?
Exactly.
I could have skipped
100%.
a lot of pain.
Yeah.
You know, like, that it's not the dollar amount that you're producing. It's all the connections, the lessons, the peace and contentment, which ends up making you more money, funnily enough, when you actually get to that. But
so somebody's thinking, I can already see the comments coming in. I can already see the messages coming in from our listeners and audience. Ewan, they're, hey, that's all good, you know, 6 digits. However, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, right? I'm struggling to make ends meet right now. What would be one piece of advice or direction or guide that you would give them to focus on right now in building up that so they can have that byproduct of money? What would be one piece of advice you'd give them?
I don't think there's anything I can say that people haven't already heard, but I'm going to say it anyway, because it's not about if you know it or not. It's about actually doing something with it. And that's probably the biggest key. If I think about, like, I say manifestation, I don't really like that word, but, like, I imagined I was coming to America and it happened. I imagined the Mustang and I got it. I imagined having this job where I made lots of money and that happened. It always required action. I needed to do something. And those things were such big things to pull me forward. I was willing to, like you say, embrace the suck, right? Like, these things are not easy, but I want that thing so bad. At least my brain is convinced that that's what it wants, that it just does the next thing that thinks that will get me there. A lot of those things don't work. But then what does that mean, though? You find out what doesn't work until you find what does. So I think, and you've helped me with this a lot, which is, what are your values? You know, write your values down. What is your why? And we've been talking about that a lot recently. And I don't like those questions. You know, my personality, you love them.
You
to me, I'm like, I've never connected with that, but I've never connected with it more until the last couple of months, and especially with running. Like, that is just, I've started running a lot more, and just I've seen some different visions occurring in my mind about that, and the pattern recognition again. I'm realizing, man, I'm doing these things because I want X. You know, I used to smoke. Yes, I'll just say, you know, I used to smoke because it was cool or whatever, and I've quit a number of things in my life. Like, I'm pretty good at quitting, like, habits and stuff. And that was one that was really tough. And I wanted to do Muay Thai, kickboxing. So I was doing it I went for about 3 months, and I was getting really good. But I realized I couldn't keep my arms up. And the big part of winning a fight or being a good fighter is being able to block yourself, blocking your head, keeping your arms up. And I was not fit enough. Like, I couldn't keep my hands up. So I was getting beat by these guys that were not as good as I was, at least not as good as I thought I was. And so I just quit smoking immediately, just stopped. I was like, I have now connected what I want. which is to excel at this sport. And I never went back. I just stopped. So if I think about, like, if you break that down, there was something that was more valuable, more tangible than what I'm currently doing. That's
beautiful.
Prohibiting me from getting there. So paycheck to paycheck, to go back to your question, right? Like, if you're still in your paycheck to paycheck, you definitely have not found something that is pulling you to do the things to get out of that, right? So you've really, this is why it's so important. I've hated it in the past, but you have to take the time. Like, what will get me going? Man, so we're in a mastermind group, and we've been in that group for almost a whole year, and we kept hammering down on, and I was asking you guys, like, almost like yelling, forcing, like, why can I not figure out what it is? I love soccer, don't want to coach soccer. Like, this is all on the side. I love my job, my career, but just like as far as doing something like a why, like a passion thing, it wasn't coaching fitness. I've coached, CrossFit classes in the past, and I guess it ended up coming down to what we landed on. My why was, man, I always loved helping people. When I remember I coached a under 5 soccer team, and I loved it. I thought when I started coaching this CrossFit class in Montgomery, Texas, I thought I was doing it for free. The owner was like, hey man, I've seen you know what you're doing, and I was getting certified and stuff. And he said, I was like, yeah man, absolutely, let's do it. And I remember he gave me my first paycheck, and he's like, I'm getting paid for this? I thought I just loved doing it. And then when I was at Enterprise, like I was doing really well with the sales, they would keep sending people over to get trained up. Like we want you to train these people. I had old training classes for selling this damage waiver. And I just loved it. Like, I loved training people, So I think that there's so many examples of that where I just enjoy teaching, coaching, helping people maybe imagine what it is that they want, and then helping them get there, right? Step by step.
And a beautiful thing about it is, I don't know if this was a frequency thing right now, but because of what you just said right then and there, which was beautifully said, I might ask, what better way to do that than on the podcast?
Yes.
Level up and live.
And mic drop right there, I mean,
in the show, baby.
That's a high five. That's right there. High fiver. So this is something I just love. Like, when you asked me to do this, I think it was an answered prayer from God. And because you didn't have to, man, you built this thing, like this platform, and I was just sitting back, and you'd, in the mastermind, you'd ask the guys to help, and I just was addicted to, like, here, man, what about this, and try that, yes. And you'd just come back and be like, hey, tried that, it worked, tried this, didn't work, and I'm like, this is so cool. And I would have just have continued to love to have just helped, like, never been on this, but just helping you was so exciting, and it wasn't me doing it, Sean was doing all the hard work, but I was just coming up with ideas, and I think that's where it stemmed, like, okay, how big can we go as far as helping people with this, So together, stronger,
Yeah, one of the things, if you're listening to this podcast, it's not always rainbows and sunshines. There's stuff behind the scenes that I struggle with, that I have obstacles and setbacks. But what keeps me going every single day is exactly what we're talking about, having the macro, the vision, the why behind. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to continue to show up because I want to be a role model. And because I know that's what you're facing in your own life, in every area of life. And you just have to basically stare it down. What is it? What's the obstacle? What's the setback? What's the challenge? Let's stare it down together. And like Ewan said, in this mastermind group for the last 12 months, if I had a audio recorder or a video with all the struggles, with all the obstacles and all the setbacks and all the questions that I've had to ask these brilliant men in this group, then it's allowed me to get to where we are today. And Ewan has just leaned in, he's bought in, and he sees the vision, he sees the purpose, and I'm super excited to have you with us today. So,
and what's so spectacular about what Sean does is what most people do not do this, and this is one of the things that we've been discussing. Like, I see him doing these things, and it's not normal, right? Like, he thinks it's normal, but he's so good at just doing things. And I've done a lot of things in my life, and I've pushed through, but I have to I'll analyze pattern recognition. Once I see the vision, then I'll move forward, but I kind of hold back until I get it. You are so good at making decisions quickly, failing quickly, figuring out what doesn't work, and then doing it. And I'm like, man, if we could put that in a drink, yes, and give that to people, So, I've done all these things, and you're complimenting me, but I've watched you at the same time, and I've learned so much from Sean. Like, I I should have moved quicker on this and it would have been okay. Like, and man, when you say stare it down, we came up with that together. And what is behind that is fear, right? Like we don't act, we don't move because of fear, but you've somehow managed to be able to brush the fear away and just move quickly. And that is a skill. That's a muscle, right? That can be learned. We've discussed that. And that's something we hope to teach going forward, you know.
Anybody can do it.
I'm doing it. I'm man, full transparency. I'm anxious. Like I'm in medical equipment sales now, knocking on directors' doors, C-suite people, having these big conversations about millions of dollars. And I am petrified half the time. Like I get stuck in my own head. I have fears, anxieties, and even though I'm content in my life, I'm very happy with my life. But then when it's time to do some of these difficult things, I can freeze. And I've used what Sean has, like just being around him and our group and just being able to, okay, this is one of those moments. And in the past, I've done X, and this version of Ewan ends up here, and this version of Ewan who does this ends up there. And so that's really helped me take even more action, and it's helped me even more in the things in my endeavors in life. So
there was a tip that you shared with me behind the scenes before the podcast. So what helps you get over that hurdle when you're like, you know what, I'm sitting in the car listening to music right now. It's too easy just to sit here, go home, but instead I'm going to go knock on the director's door. What is it that helps you? What's one tip that you could give somebody that's, hey, fear, rejection, self-doubt, whatever it may be, to take action?
Yeah.
What is something that you do?
For me, it is to write it down. And I know you are smiling ear to ear because you love to write things down. And hey, listen to that. He loves to write it down. How many people listening to this do that? But here's kind of a technique, man. This is real gold. It is a mountain mover, and it won't sound like much. I'm probably hyping it up too much in your mind, but you're probably going to roll your eyes and not do it. And I promise you, the version of you that does will absolutely dominate the version of you that doesn't. And it is getting it outside of your head. You know, I've learned, I don't know if it's that ego thing or just a society thing where you don't let out your troubles, your anxieties. So I now know if I'm something swirling around in my head, I've learned, like, if I get it out of my brain into Word and out to my wife, she's a soundboard for me. Even with I do it with you, I just realized that, if all these anxieties, these fears, if I just get it out, it's now a tangible problem to be worked on. And you'll suddenly realize the fear is not that bad. And a really superpower for me is just an example. If there was something difficult I needed to do, I hate being in fear. I hate not being able to take action because feeling scared, small, and not taking action is miserable. What kind of a life is that? And maybe you can resonate with that, maybe you can't, but I realized, okay, what do I need to do? And I remember I grabbed a pen and paper once, and I've used it a lot since then, but I would start writing down, I am afraid of doing this. Going to see this person, I'm afraid of what's going to happen. Like, they're going to reject me, or they're not going to be able to understand what I'm going to say to them clearly, and I'm going to look like a fool. I'm going to be embarrassed, and I'd say, is that true, Ewan? I'd write all this down. I'm writing this down. It's not even going to be a paragraph. I'm like, no, it's not true. Has that ever happened before? Actually, it's never happened before, but the fear in my mind is telling me that it's real. And so I say, what's the worst that can happen? Writing that down, I'll literally write that down. What's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst that could happen, they could reject me. Am I going to come back and see this person again? Yeah, you are, because that's the kind of person I am. And normally, I would have put the pen down before I was finished, and I was already in that person's office or vicinity and having that conversation, and it almost always works out. Like, maybe not exactly the way I want it to, but it moved the needle.
That's right.
I learned to fail quickly doing that. So yeah, writing your fears, anxieties down, or getting them out to someone, and you don't need them to solve your problem. You just need to get it out of your head. I was telling Sean, my wife would just give me a hug, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to rumble. Talk about vulnerability right there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
beautifully said.
Definitely try that. If you're feared of anything right now, just grab a pen and paper, give it a shot. Just see what happens. Write down your fears. What's the worst that could happen? And play it out in your mind, right? And then go for it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Wrapping things up. Ewan, you have been a breath of fresh air, man. That's the first word that came to my mind. Like, I love getting the chance to be with men. Like, our wives say this all the time, and our friends, our family, and even in our mastermind group, reflecting back, like, every time we get around each other, we're like, oh, there's other people here. There's 5-6 other people here. So I think, again, being able to be on this podcast with you has been a true honor. You've served hundreds and thousands of people, even if it's just one person, and they take away and they make an impact from what you said today as far as your story. So thank you so much for your time, energy, and effort on sharing everything. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You ready?
Hit me.
Okay. What does level up and live mean to you?
Yeah, man. I kind of hinted to it earlier, but leveling up is, there's a version of me that doesn't do the thing that would be really good for me, probably a difficult thing. And there's a version of me that does. And I constantly, it really helps me make decisions. Do I want the version of this guy that's eating the candy, not exercising, letting his brain slowly decay, and not achieving, not that achieving is important, but just because I know, like, leading to contentment and enjoying the things that I do, versus the version that does a difficult thing, short-term pain, long-term pleasure, versus the short-term pleasure, long-term pain. You can't argue. No one could argue with me that there's not a single thing you could apply that to that you could reverse that formula, right? Short-term pain is going to be longer-term pleasure, and that might be contentment and peace. So I look at the version of myself that needs to level up and what he's capable of, and I think about that every day. Like the guy that stays in the warm, cozy bed, or the guy that gets out and goes running at 5 a.m. And man, I'm going to pick the 5 a.m. morning guy because he's going to crush the guy that stays in bed and is coming from a place of weakness. Nothing wrong with staying in bed, P.S. But just if I'm staying in bed because I'm not able to make a decision that's good for me, that's not healthy, right? And so that's what leveling up and living is. Doing things that are just out of your comfort zone, just above your level, get up to that level, and then you start living, and you just keep doing that over and over, and that's the good life.
Beautifully said. And there you have it, folks. Ewan Heinemeier. Thanks for your time, energy, and effort, man.
Thank you, brother.
Have a fantastic day.
You too.
And there you have it. Another exciting episode of Level Up and Live. I hope you enjoyed this unique twist as much as I did. A massive thank you to our co-host, Ewan Heinemeier, for opening up and sharing his journey with us. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share this episode with one friend who needs to hear this. Remember, the journey to success is an adventure. And here at Level Up and Live, we're committed to bringing you the stories and insights that will fuel your life to stop existing and start living. Stay tuned for more epic conversations. And until next time, keep leveling up, keep living, and always strive for greatness. This is Sean Meyers signing off. See you on the next episode.